Hello and welcome to the Embodied Feminine Masterclass. Do you ever feel like there's an inner power, a calling, and a soul potential that is uniquely yours? And because of this, do you sometimes feel that you rely so much on your high achieving parts to get things done and meet this potential, but it's leaving you feeling exhausted, second guessing yourself, and maybe just a little unsure? Yeah. And imagine if you could break free from these limitations that are blocking your access to your inner power. Wouldn't that feel liberating? Yes. And if so, then that tells me that you are an awakening woman and you're becoming aware and sensing that there's this inner world that you're waking up to. For most of my life, when I thought of being an awakened woman and being feminine, that it meant that I had to wear pretty pink clothes and a dress and flowers in my hair and talk like a fairy and never swear. And I was so wrong. And it's this kind of conditioning that has women believing that this inner feminine power, this divine source, is disconnected from ourselves, that we can't step into our feminine and be really powerful, that we can't step into our feminine and be divine creators of what we want to manifest into our lives. And so when we are embodied in our feminine, both light and dark, we are powerful women. We find our voice, we step into our strength, we are able to connect to our fullest potential. And so if you're with me right now, that tells me that you want this potential, you want to step into that, right? But when we don't know how to balance that need for control, what can happen is we step into our masculine energy. We rely on our masculinized parts of ourselves. And it can leave us feeling burnt out, overworked, fragmented, exhausted, hyper independent. And it's because we're in such desperate need to seek control in our lives. But what we need is to be balanced in our feminine, to restore, inspire, and enliven this inner energy and inner trust within ourselves. So like many awakening women, you may be feeling overwhelmed by this calling and this uncertainty about the steps that you need to take to both be in control, but also step into your fullest potential and really embody that effortlessly. By being able to access our feminine energy and reclaim this power, we find a divine balance between both our feminine and our masculine energy. And it's really important to mention that when we're talking about the feminine and masculine, we mean energy and qualities as opposed to gender. So you may be thinking, but I'm a woman. Aren't I already interconnected with my feminine energy? And unfortunately, the answer is no. And we are going to be diving into that today to help you understand why our feminine energy as women has been repressed. And we've been conditioned to rely on our masculine energy to keep ourselves safe. A lot of women think that the masculine is where our divine power lies. And don't get me wrong, when I'm in my masculine, I can get things done in my business really well. But when it comes to connection, when it comes to balance, when it comes to manifesting my dreams and desires, it's the feminine that allows me to tap into that inner power. And that power is inside of you. And it's waiting to be awakened. And it starts by embracing your feminine energy. So welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Nikki Casa, and I am so excited to be here to teach you more about our feminine energy. But before we dive into today's masterclass, I want to honor you because you showed up and you've taken the time to be watching this. And you could be anywhere else right now. You could be scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, but you chose to be here. And that tells me that you're really committed to your inner work. It tells me that you really value learning and you value growth, don't you? And you know what Oprah says? She says, I'm a woman in process, right? Progress, not perfection. And I take every experience and learn from it. So I just want to acknowledge you for being here, for showing up, for taking the time to be committed to this space, committed to your growth, committed to your inner work. So what are we going to be learning today? We are going to be connecting to the deeper truth of who you are and the story of your power as a creator of your life. We are going to discover how you can start living in alignment with your higher purpose as a divine, embodied feminine woman, and how to break free from these underlying barriers that have been contributing to feeling out of alignment, so that you can step into a power that feels truly authentic to you. How good. Before we dive into that, would it be okay if I shared my story? Amazing. Thank you. So who am I? I'm a mind body practitioner. I'm a speaker. I'm a podcast host and upcoming author. And I've done quite a lot of things. I'm really passionate about speaking at the moment. I've been wanting to put myself out there and do more public speaking events, personal development, public speaking events. And that terrifies me because 4 or 5 years ago, I was somebody who, if you'd asked me that I would be getting up in front of a crowd of women and sharing my voice, I would have told you that you were like crazy, because that was something I was petrified of. I was so scared of that. And so it's been a journey, and since then I have learned how to share my voice, and sometimes I still get nervous, especially if it's a live group and I'm up on a stage looking down at women or staring at me. It can be quite daunting. But I was never like this. 6 years ago, before I dove into this journey of self-development, I woke up in a psych ward in Bali. And this was me before the holiday. And during that experience, 3 days prior to waking up to the hospital, my drink had been spiked. And what happened during those 3 days is I stayed stuck in what's called psychosis, which essentially is like when you get stuck in a trip and you can't come out of it. So for 3 days, I was stuck in this psychosis trip, and I experienced these really traumatizing things. I felt so unsafe. My friends, who I thought were my friends, abandoned me. And at one stage, I thought I was going to get abducted. And it's kind of like scary to think how far I've come from like thinking I was going to die and waking up in a psych ward on my own, and my dad having to come get me because my friends left me there, to where I am today. And it's because of something really amazing that happened on that trip in Bali. And you're probably thinking, what the hell, Nikki? We're supposed to be feeling motivated here, and you're sharing some traumatizing event. This is not motivational at all. Well, what happened during that trip was that I had a spiritual awakening. I woke up to the world around me. In particular, I woke up to myself and who I was living, this girl here on the left, who I was being, and all of these parts of me that I was suppressing. And usually, like, spiritual awakenings are like pretty good. If you're a client of mine and you've had a spiritual awakening in this space, you're like, yeah, it's so good. But sometimes spiritual awakenings can feel like this. And so like this was certainly my experience after what happened to me in Bali and going through my healing journey. I was like, damn, I got a lot of healing to do. I got a lot of shadow work to do. And it was painful. It was tough. I left all my friends. I obviously didn't associate myself with those people anymore. I ended up leaving Adelaide, which was where I was born, and moved to Sydney at the time. And essentially what happened at that time was I relied on my masculine energy to get my shit together. And it worked. Like, I got on stage, I competed in the WBFF. This was the first time I competed. I came second to Brooke, beautiful woman, and got my pro card. And then the next year I competed again as a pro and came, what did I come? Third again? No, yeah, Yeah, it came second here and then it came third such a long time ago. And so it worked. But at the peak of relying on this masculine energy to keep me safe and getting my shit together after Bali, I then swung too far into my masculine. And so from an energy perspective, right? And you're probably quite confused by that because as a bikini bodybuilding pro, this is like the look of a feminine woman, right? This is what we externalize as being womanly and feminine. But internally, I had no access to that. So I was working 3 jobs. I was a PT, I was doing sales calls for Hattie Boydell. I was also doing bodybuilding posing on the weekend. I was hyper independent, so I would push everyone away. I was constantly burnt out. I had a closed heart. So when it came to receiving love, I kept attracting I kept attracting unavailable men. I was gonna say fuckboys, but I was like, I've said it now. I kept attracting unavailable men, men that just wanted to play games and would ghost me, and I couldn't figure out why that was. I felt really empty, like I was doing all these things to be successful and wearing this mask of perfectionism and, controlling everything and doing everything that I needed to do to make it. And yet I was like so lost. I was like binge eating. I was angry at myself. I hated my body. I hated my body. I was a bodybuilding pro. Like people clap for that. And I hated it. And so you could see how disconnected I was from myself internally versus my external world. So from an external perspective, it looked like I had it all together. But internally, I felt kind of lost. And I'm just wondering if anyone's ever felt that. It's like sometimes you feel, yeah, hands up, like you feel like you have to have it together all the time. Yeah. And that maybe sometimes people don't see what's actually going on underneath the surface or what you're actually experiencing. And it's scary to show that side of us. It's scary to be vulnerable and show people these wounds, to show people what we're experiencing when maybe we don't know why. We feel like we're the only one that's going through that. And I can tell you girls right now that if you're in that position right now, you are not alone and that you are normal and there is nothing wrong with you and you are not broken. You are not broken. And you're certainly not a project to be fixed. So I'm not here to fix you today. I'm here to show you the stories, the beliefs, and the things that you learned about yourself along the way that pulled you away from your truth, the truth about who you truly are. So I'm here to undo all of these conditions and limiting beliefs and stories and bring you back to who you were to begin with. Bring you back to who you are underneath these masks that maybe you feel you need to wear, or you have to wear, or you should wear to be good enough, to be worthy, to be accepted. Because those are the masks that are masking your divine feminine energy. These are the parts of us that are hiding our true essence, right, in our hearts. Oh, everyone say, oh. Okay, so when I realized this about myself, and I looked at this irony of, oh my gosh, Nikki, you're a bikini pro, and yet when it comes to feminine energy, I once had a mentor ask me, Nikki, what does it mean for you to be feminine? And I was so perplexed with that question. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What does it mean to be feminine? And I really sat with that for a while, and I started to recognize I kind of had no idea. Like I knew what it meant to look like a feminine woman, but did I? Did I know what it meant to feel feminine? To be feminine, not just look feminine? And I was like, wow, I have no idea what it means to feel feminine. I know what it takes to look like one, but what about what's happening on the internal world? And so I began exploring and asking questions and connecting and doing a lot of healing. And I found what was blocking my feminine. And it was that I was relying on my masculine to keep me safe. I was relying on my masculine energy to keep me safe. And so for some of you, that might resonate right now. You might be like, oof, I feel like that's something I do. I feel like I have to be masculine. so that I'm in control. Because if I'm in control, no one can hurt me. If I'm in control, no one can abandon me. I'll leave them first. Yeah, Melinda says 100%. Yeah, so it sounds like, Melinda, you're resonating to that too. And so, girls, the masculine energy is not a bad thing. I think as women, when we look at having masculine energy, we're like, oh my God, that's so bad. And it's like, hang on, this kept me safe. This kept me going after I ended up in a psych ward. This kept me going when I was losing my true sense of self. And I thought I needed to perform on stage in order to get validation and worthiness. That kept me safe. That kept me from sitting with some of the darker parts of myself. But since coming back to my embodied feminine, I've actually been able to receive that kind of love and safety I was craving. You know, the paradox is when we actually surrender to our feminine, we're able to learn how to receive those things, safety in our body, right? Self-expression, connection with the divine masculine man. We can magnetize abundance in our lives, and we can be calm, regulated. And I can still be in my masculine too, whenever I want, right? When it comes to business, I crush it. And I rely on my masculine to help me with that, with a little bit of my feminine intuition, right? Who guides the way. So when you are able to access both of these states, girls, and have autonomy, which means like balance between the two, like a really nice synchronicity, you're able to oscillate and flow in and out of your masculine, in and out of your feminine, and be the divine controller of that, as opposed to them controlling you because you're feeling unsafe. Does that make sense? So for a lot of you women, what will happen as you start to recognize this is that you'll come to your own spiritual awakening. And hopefully it's not like the GIF that I showed you before, but as you become an awakened woman, we can begin to bring forth our fullness, right? Not just one part of ourselves, right, that we love to show, but bring forth our fullness of our true expression of who we are. And this is where we have potentials for more self-love, more creativity, more divine connections, healthy relationships, can break old patterns, eliminate emotional damage control, so things like binge eating or restriction or other forms of addiction. And the gateway to that is inner work. Inner work is where we access this ability. So the important thing about inner work is that we start to look inwards and build acceptance with where we're at right now. And so a lot of the times, if we are relying on our masculine energy, it's because we've looked to our external world to reaffirm why we should be that way. So in my example, I relied on my masculine energy so that other people wouldn't hurt me. I relied on my masculine energy so I could be really successful. And so I think that what happens is we create these conditions for why we have to be certain ways, but they're based on our external world, what other people think of us, what other people think we should do or shouldn't do. And what happens is when we're really fixed on our external world, it blocks us from doing our inner work. And this is what amplifies our masculine energy. And too much masculine, it becomes toxic masculinity. So we live in this society and culture where masculinity is really celebrated. Like we're told to sleep when we're dead and to hustle, and like always go, do more, be more, earn more, look better, exercise, do this, don't do that. And what happens is all of that's just based on the external world. Do, right? We're not human doings. We're human beings. And so I believe living a purposely driven life is important. We have to have goals, sure. Humans love meaning, but we also need to, when we're recognizing that we're meeting these unrelenting standards, it's under this constant pressure, and unrelenting standards are ones you can't meet. They're unrelenting, they're unattainable. Eventually something has to give. And so when we are in an overfunctioning and having to keep busy all the time, it's a sign that we're relying on our masculine energy for control and safety. So if you're an overachiever or a perfectionist, hands up, any overachievers or perfectionists in the space? Yeah, my gosh, almost all of you. It's because you've had to rely on your masculine to keep you safe. So just take that in for a minute and know that sometimes it's not always by choice. No one's choosing to be masculine here. Right? If you identify as being a woman and you're claiming that, no one would choose to be a man here. It's like we are a lot of women here, and I know, like I, for one, I'm proud to be a woman. But I couldn't access that because it felt unsafe. So we then have this like idea, it's like, oh, just get over it. And what if we can't? What if we can't just show up? What if we can't just do it? Well, then what happens is we feel disappointed and we feel ashamed and we feel inadequate, we feel not good enough. And what do we do with all those emotions if we've got toxic masculine energy? We suppress it. So can you see the cycle of toxic masculinity that energetically we're living in? And so when someone says, just be feminine, you can see why that's kind of hard to do, right? And that's certainly what I'm not going to tell you girls to do today, is like, just be more feminine. Because if it was that easy, you would have done it already. So it's really important when we do inner work, we have to understand what's been suppressing that, what's been denying our ability to access our feminine energy. So take some time to reflect on how much you rely on your masculine for the need of outer control and power. Maybe you'd like to take some notes or write something down, or just take some time to close your eyes and see how that's played out for you in your life. Needing outer control, needing power. Is there anyone here who would like to share anything that's coming up for them?
Hi. So because I'm a single mom and a business owner, I kind of don't have anybody else to rely on. So I'm hyper independent. So I'm just go, go, go all the time. And then when I have a client that cancels, I'm like, fill the gap, fill the gap, fill the gap. And then when I don't have my kids, I'm just cleaning or I'm staging my house or I'm just go, go, go. And so I feel like I just don't have an off switch. And that's what's kind of blocking me from maybe sitting and doing some feminine stuff. Because I've got no one else to rely on and two kids who rely on me.
Yeah. Melinda, thanks so much for sharing. It sounds like that this part of you that's relying on your masculine to go, go, go and have all these responsibilities to fulfill and depend on, is that if you didn't do those things, it's like, what would happen if you stopped? And there's probably a part of you that's saying, I can't stop.
Yeah. Bills got to get paid.
Yeah,
Clothes got to get cleaned. Food has to be cooked for the kids. Yeah.
children to look after. And so what happens is, because typically when we look at the polarity, which is like a balance, girls, the polarity of the feminine and masculine, do we need a man in our life? No. But when we look at the polarity of fem mask, if we don't have a man to support us in the masculine, and the masculine is the supporter, he is the one that will go out of the cave and go hunt the saber-toothed tigers and bring back the food, right? If we didn't have that, then we take on that role. We have to. There has to be that balance between the polarity of feminine and masculine. And there's polarity in everything in life, dark and light, positive and negative. And so, Melinda, you've taken on both roles. And again, masculine energy is not bad. So I'm certainly not going to tell you to not take care of your responsibilities and your children. But
Yeah.
what we need to do is give you permission to surrender into your feminine, give you permission to stop when the work is done. Because I can tell you right now, there's probably a part of you, even when there's nothing to do, it's like, what do we need to do?
Yeah. Mine's always racing, always going. Yeah. When I did Dream Out Loud a couple of weeks ago, and the feedback, somebody just said, you're always it. And like these people don't know me. I don't know if anybody else has done Dream Out Loud. These people do not know me. I stand up, I say something, and they write down their thoughts, their feedback. So one actually said, I feel like you can't live in the moment. You are always looking for the next step. And that just blew my mind, that me speaking about something unrelated, they were still able to see that. I was like, oof, like I really do need to slow down and be present.
Yeah. And so, you know how I mentioned before, the past slide is like we're told to just do it.
Mm-hmm.
What if you can't just do it?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I'm the like procrastinator perfectionist. So if I can't do it, yeah, I do have bad feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're struggling to name the feeling, right? Bad
Yeah,
feeling.
bad feelings. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um, Not good enough or not capable or
uh-huh.
mm,
Yeah, and they're at both actions. So it's like, what's the feeling though?
ooh, um, oh, Nikki. Unworthiness, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see like even accessing our emotional states goes, which is surrendering to our feminine. Yeah, all of that's coming up for you now too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah.
Something to work on. Thank you.
Well, you can see, Melinda, what's happening is your masculine is masking all of this. Remember the
Yeah.
mask I told you I was wearing?
Yeah.
Mask shuts out this inner world, and not just the sad stuff, but the good stuff too, our abilities to be present and happy and love ourselves. Yeah. So it
Thank
sounds
you.
like there's a bit of an awakening coming up for you as well.
Yeah. My goal this year is to work on my feminine energy because I know I've got a masculine shield
Mm.
and it's probably the reason why I ended my last relationship. So yeah, lots of work to do.
My mission for you today is to help you feel safe in accessing your feminine. Because for
Thank
a lot of women, if you can see all the emotion that's coming from Melinda right now, it hurts. It hurts. So what we want to do is help you girls feel safe to access your feminine, to sit with your inner work and go, I'm free to feel these things and know that I can trust myself to keep my body safe. Keep my body safe. So that's definitely my mission for you. And if you look at the chat box, all the
you.
girls,
I know, I'm just gonna go back and read them now. Like everyone's sending so much love. I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable, Melinda. Yeah, vulnerability is actually um, access to our feminine. So despite feeling like you need to access it more, it is there. It is there. I can feel it. Okay, girls. So let's talk about why actually accessing our feminine has been unsafe. So hands up, who saw the post I put up this week about being a good girl? Yeah. And who had some realizations about that? Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't think I was a good girl growing up because I was actually kind of naughty. If you know my story, if you've been a client of mine, there's one photo I have. Actually, it's in this slide deck. There's this one photo I have, and I've shaved the side of my head. And then, because this is my natural color, I dyed my hair black. Can you imagine my mum when I came home with black hair and I'd shave the side of my head? I was far from a good girl growing up. I was the little shit. Sorry, mum. I turned out pretty well. I turned out all right. But what happened was it was actually fueled by this good girl complex. So we're going to talk about that now because this is something that might be the first time you've heard of it, and it's quite interesting. So elaborating on the post I put up this week, growing up, most women are conditioned to be the good girl. The good girl is careful how loud she is, never expressing herself too much, but just enough to be noticed, right? If we were at a function and we were running around, we were told, sit down, be quiet. And so we never really had the opportunity to like be loud and suppress ourselves. And what would happen if boys did that? It's like, oh, boys will be boys, right? So as girls, we were told to be the good girl, be quiet, be well behaved. And because of this, because of this, a part of us becomes hyper vigilant. And what that means is we get, if you just look at me in the camera, we go like this, like hyper vigilant is like this scarcity need to look to our external world and have attention on our external world just in case, right? So it's hyper vigilant. Am I being good or am I being bad? So we become hyper vigilant about receiving, validating approval, right? So from mum and dad, like, am I being a good girl or not? We receive validating approval from the world around us. And so after years of doing this, right, being conditioned to be this way, minimizing our true self-expression. to meet perfectionism, she will begin to feel unsafe in her own body. So hands up if you've ever heard the saying, big girls don't cry. That is an explanation of what I'm sharing right now, is that somewhere along the way, we were told we cannot express our true self-expression, our true selves. Big girls don't cry. Time to grow up and be a big girl. And essentially what that was saying was like, we have to be this good girl. You know, I grew up wanting to be a freaking fairy. I remember being in the secret garden at school and making pies and potions, and I'd pull petals off the trees, and along the way I just kind of like stopped doing that. And I remember that looking back, that it was something that was told was like weird, because all the other girls in my grade were like playing chasey with the boys. And I was like, oh, like I couldn't be free to express that side of myself. And I had to like be the good girl and do what all the other girls were doing in my grade. And so I put that away. I suppressed that side of me, you know, and I've been inviting that part of me in now as my free spirit. And I'm expressing more of that side of me so much more. I made these beautiful feather earrings the other day. And so that allows me to tap back into my inner child and allow her to express herself in the ways that she likes. So what happens though, if we're feeling unsafe in expressing ourselves? Well, we would think that there's something wrong about it. If I'm not a good girl, I'm a bad girl. And what happens when we're a bad girl? We get punished. So we then punish ourselves when we're not perfect. And then society will tell us how to change in order to fit these standards of beauty, good enough, perfectionism. I mean, if you go down to the news agency and you pick up a magazine, read the first cover, and you will start to see the conditioning that we get. The conditioning that we need to, you know, get a six-pack, or we need to slim down for summer. So these are all the conditionings that we receive, and it's not just when we're children, it's reinforced as we grow up. So what happens is she would try to outperform her male peers, right? Because women empowerment, but she will never feel as good as her counterpart. She will still be underpaid. She will still feel that she's not enough. She will still feel that, oh, he's just so brave. He puts himself out there. And it's because boys are taught to be brave and girls are taught to be perfect. Right? Boys are taught to give it a go. Don't worry if you get hurt. Girls aren't. And so what happens is, well, she will then place her self-worth on achievement, appearance, and how hard she can work. She will place her self-worth on how well she does, how hard she works. Because what happens when she doesn't? She's not good enough. And so when she can't meet these unrelenting standards, remember, unrelenting are often these ones that are so high we can't achieve. She won't help. She won't be able to help it, but to feel like she's not good enough. And because of that, she will eventually not be able to trust her own decisions. This is a big one. Where you will have decisions you want to make, but you second guess yourselves. Because she was conditioned from childhood to seek validation from parents or society. So every time she takes action, she will question her decisions and overanalyze if it's the right thing to do. Yeah, put a emoji into the chat box, or put a me too into the chat box if that resonates with you. So every time you want to do something, you're like, oh, do I do it? Do I not do it? Should I do this? Should I do that? Like, what if people say this? Or I don't know, what will my parents think? And, oh, but is it the right decision? What if my friends from school I haven't spoken to in 10 years judge me? It's like, what? Yeah, and I'm just seeing Emily, Vanessa, iPhone. I'm not sure who iPhone is. Maybe just, oh, is that Topaz? This is a really beautiful name. Nilinika. Did I say that right? That's such a pretty name.
Yes, thank you.
Did I get it, Nilinika?
Yeah,
That's such a
thanks.
pretty name. Danny, Nicole, Carrie, Jermaine, Tay, yeah. Yeah, Melinda, Kayla. Yeah, yeah. I thought so. Every week when you jump on call, I'm like, iPhone, I think it's Topaz. So girls, you can start to see, it's like, oh my God, a lot of my self-doubt has come from this remember this hyper rigidity, this need to look to my external world to tell me. I'm looking to my external world to tell me what I should do? When did I start to put my decisions and my life in the hands of somebody else, especially another man? And so one of the things that then blocks is our intuition. You know, when you just know, that becomes blocked and we just don't know. And we use the language, I'm just lost. I feel lost, don't know what to do. You do know what to do in your heart, deep down. But that access to that intuitive knowledge and that inner guidance, that inner wisdom becomes blocked. We stop listening to that. So eventually she will abandon her feminine energy altogether and her masculine will demand control, right? In hyper independent control, get shit done. I've been there. Sometimes I still feel myself oscillating in and out of that. But what happens is then we struggle with creativity, we lack self-expression, we struggle to regulate our emotions, we struggle to name our emotions. And then we won't trust ourselves. It won't be until she's until she realizes she's lost her sense of self. She says, I don't even know who I am anymore. That she will eventually look inwards and question her identity. This is the breaking point. This is when she transforms. Who wants that? Yeah, Melinda. So if you're looking inwards and you're like, who am I then? I've been relying on my masculine energy for so long. This is a good thing. This is great. This means that you're starting to look inwards and ask these questions that open you up, open your heart, get you to access more of your inner world. So the good girl, she is guilty for making money and spending it, right? Because typically the men are the breadwinner. Well, that's a limiting belief, right? Who's ever had their dad or their partner or their I don't know, any men say like, yeah, men are the breadwinner. Oh no, that's not true. So we feel guilty for making money and spending it. We don't like investing in things. But we will certainly binge buy the next Muscle Nation sale, that's for sure. That becomes a self-sabotaging behavior, right? We look for others to define her worthiness. She represses her voice over the fear of being too loud. So this was a big reason why I had such a huge fear of public speaking, because my fear was, if I start putting myself out there and having a voice, what if people judge me? And this has happened. There have been posts and reels that I've done where I've received men, go figures, who will say horrible things like, who does this girl think she is, teaching us about being triggered? Who does she think she is, a doctor? She doesn't know anything. She's in a crop top. All of these things about when we put ourselves out there and speaking our voice, like, what if I'm too loud? What if people judge me, right? So that's what the good girl does. She silences that part of herself over the fear of being judged. She struggles to stand up for her beliefs and values. She becomes a people pleaser. And so the good girl will either swing too far into her weak feminine. So the weak feminine is the people pleaser, powerless, a pushover. And then the other side of that is that then she'll shut off her emotions altogether. She'll be like, nope, not feeling any of that. I'm not going to be a victim, but I'm going to take on the role as the hyper villain. So like, I'm going to go to war on myself. I'm going to go to war on the world, and I'll show you how good I am. I've been there before as well. That's what happened to me after Bali. I was like, how dare you abandon me? And I had no friends. And I was like, I'll show you how good I am. So yes, pain can fuel our why. Pain can fuel the reason we show up. However, if you are still taking action and wanting to succeed in your life because you're still proving to somebody else in your past how good you are, then you are accessing your masculine energy and you're going to war as the villain. And I can tell you right now, it's not a loving place to be, right? Internally. So a girl says her worth, a woman acts her worth. Right? So the girl is the one that stomps her feet and goes, but I don't want to play. A woman acts her worth. she just walks away, right? So I want you girls now to take some time to answer the following questions. Where am I playing it small and dimming my light? Whose validation am I seeking to show up confidently? What's standing in the way of putting myself first? Where am I settling in my life? And what will become possible if I stop playing it small and instead completely embrace who I am and what my soul desires? So you don't need to write the questions down. You can if you want, or you can take a photo of this now, but definitely take some time now. I'm going to put some music on to write something down for each of these questions, just something small.
They said it's time, and I know that without a doubt, the spirit in us all is trying to break out. Well, this is your time, this is my time to illuminate, cause we were made to shine. Divinity by law in our DNA. They lied, but we saw truth anyway. This is divine recognition for this time of remission. Time change mission, said you have my permission to be your light, let no man dim. See your sight is not original sin. I said you came in the same way that you will go, and that's with love and with righteousness. Heed to the flow. But I heard it all before, yes, what the man said. Never held it in my heart, but I held it in my head. Yeah. But then I saw that it isn't just suggestion, it's spiritual law to love all, serve all, and remember Jah. And so we love all, serve all, and remember Jah. Love all, serve all, and remember Jah. And so we love all, serve all, and remember Jah. Love all, serve all, and remember Jah. Now this is bliss, that's what it is. So tell your parents and your kids that they should not miss. The time is now, the questions how we look for each other in answers. Singers and dancers will lead the way, been led astray, but now we have answered.
Okay, and finishing up what you're writing now. Take some time to finish up.
I must stand tall. Kaku is watching, so is my family, and so is my tribe. Mustn't seek vanity, must seek to be wise, must seek to be wise, yeah. But I heard it all before, yes, what the man said. I held it in my heart, but I held it in my head. It isn't just suggestion, it's spiritual law to love all, serve all, and remember Jah.
Okay. So I just want to open up the space if there's anyone who'd like to share any realizations that they've come up for them about playing it small and being a good girl.
I can share, Nikki.
Yeah, I think so, Mum.
I've had a realization that as an adult now, I've really struggled to make decisions, and a lot of the things I do, I ask my partner or I ask my mum or I ask my friends what they'll think, because I feel like I've lost a connection to my intuition and trusting myself. So that's something that's really come up for me.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And it's a sticky place to be, because when we are kind of sure of something and we're like, oh, I really want this, or I feel as if this is the right decision, to then have this part of us that always comes in and second guesses ourselves. Like, oh, I just want to be sure of myself on my life and my decisions and the direction I'm heading in. You know, it's a really tricky place to then set goals and create visions and be in alignment with our purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, in the feminine, when we look at goal setting, girls, taking action and having a business or have a life where you know it's in alignment with what you truly want, like a vision for your life, the feminine sets that. The feminine is the one that sets the vision because she's a creator, right? So the feminine impregnates, right? The feminine impregnates the idea. The feminine is the one that goes, this is what I want in my heart. She's the one that gets creative. And the masculine is the one that executes. So the reason why we might be wanting to take action and we're like, oh, I'm not really sure, like, is it the right decision, is it not? Because our feminine isn't sure and clear enough on the vision. We don't have clarity in what we want. We know, like, when push comes to shove, we can do it. We can get stuff done. We can overcome the challenges. Masculine's good at that. But if we're lacking clarity, if we don't know what we want, if we're going from job to job, thing to thing, it's because we're lacking that intuitive, this is what I want, and I'm so sure of that in my heart, and I trust that. I trust that decision. She's the one that sets it, and the masculine is the one that takes action on it, goes to mission. Does that make sense, girls? Yeah. So who's realizing now when it comes to goal setting, they need to access more of their feminine? Yeah, beautiful. Your masculine's good at doing it, but you need to know what you're doing first in order to step into that. Beautiful. Okay, let's go back to the slide. Now we're going to talk about the feminine and masculine energies, because we've been talking a lot about the feminine, but I still haven't actually described to you girls the difference between the feminine and the masculine. So what does it even look like to be in our feminine when before I mentioned too much in our feminine? So there's excess feminine and we're people pleasing. And then what it means, we know what it looks like to be too much in our masculine now. So what would balance look like? And how do we access this polarity between the feminine and masculine? Okay, so let's look at the different archetypes. So we know by now that we all have feminine and masculine energy, all of us. So whether you're a woman, no matter what you identify, we all have feminine and masculine. And I say energy a lot. So I'm not saying characteristics or looks. I'm saying energy, right? So even men need feminine energy too. And a man with no access to his feminine energy, he becomes the toxic masculinity, the toxic masculine man. A man who's really embodied in his feminine is the one that's understanding. He creates a safe space. He allows you to feel heard and seen. So that's actually his feminine energy there. So masculine and femme energy roles, they're not biologically fixed. So they're not based on how we're born, but they're socially constructed. So remember what I said about the good girl? So socially, our external world constructs us to suppress our divine feminine womanhood and just be masculine. Just do it, get it done. So it's important to recognize that there are no good or bad, but what we have are mature and immature archetypes. Our aim is to create a divine balance between these two. Whereas if we have too much of one or the other, our energy becomes unbalanced. And this is where we create depolarization, right? Or another word for that is imbalance. So you would have seen this symbol before. It's the yin yang symbol. You cannot have light without dark. You cannot have dark without light. And did you know that the dark part here is actually the feminine? Most people would look at that and go, the left is the feminine and the right is the masculine. Actually, the dark here is the feminine. So there is no good or bad. There's polarity of between our feminine and masculine. So let's dive deeper into, oh, and I just wanted to show you these photos. So when I mean immature feminine, this is what I mean. So this is my immature feminine. And this is a photo I mentioned before. Shaved my head and came home with black hair. My poor mum. Quite a transformation there. And then this is the toxic masculinity on the right. And this is what it looks like to begin accessing your feminine, tuning inwards. Okay, so I want you all to write down this circle here. You're going to draw down this circle, and then you're just going to do a little, like a soft line or a dotted line in the middle. Whoops, sorry. And then on the right, you're going to write masculine. On the left, you're going to write feminine. At the top, you're going to write light. And at the bottom, you're going to write dark. So take some time to do that now. And then when you're done, just put a thumbs up on the screen. Okay, awesome. Thank you, girls. So what we're now going to do is just go through each quadrant, so each quarter, and look at the feminine and masculine, because it's important if we're looking at the feminine, it's important to then go, well, what's the difference between that and the masculine, right? So let's start with the top left quadrant, right? The top left quarter, the light feminine. So I'm going to give you some examples, and then I want you to think of other examples that you think the light feminine would be. So the light feminine is compassionate. The light feminine is surrendered. Right? She's surrendered into her emotions rather than running away from them. Right? Surrendered to her heart, surrendered to the divine masculine. Right? So she's surrendered. Surrendered means letting go, girls. Means letting go of the need to be in control all the time, right? So when you have a feeling come up, instead of being like, nope, we're not dealing with that today, nip that shit in the bud. Instead of doing that and, overworking or having another glass of coffee, we go, what's my body telling me, right? So that's surrendering. It's letting go of the need to control. Compassionate, I already said. Nurturing, right? So very mother qualities. If there's any mums on the other than Melinda, if there's any other mums, you would know like that when you're at that mother instinct to just care for your children so much. I bet that you go second priority to that. Yeah, your kids go first. So it's like that nurturing quality. She's soft, she's gentle, she's in flow. So when things don't go her way or plans don't work out, instead of her going, oh, I had everything figured out, she's able to go with the flow. She's flexible. It doesn't mean passive in terms that she doesn't care. It means that she's easygoing in terms of she's able to let go of the need to control everything, especially the stuff she can't control. And she trusts herself. So she's called the maiden. Everyone write that down. The maiden. M-A-I-D-E-N. The next one, we're going to go down. Actually, let's go across. Let's go to the far right quadrant now. So top right, light masculine. This is the type of man that most of us want. And also dark masculine, a little bit of that. You'll get it you understand when we get there. So the light masculine, and remember, we all have masculine and feminine. So some of these qualities will be in you too. So the masculine is the provider, the light masculine. It's supportive, responsible, patient, and humble. And the name for the light masculine here is the noble knight. N-O-B-L-E, and then knight, K-N-I-G-H-T. The noble knight, this is the kind of man most of us desire. And then again, a little bit of the dark masculine. We'll get there in a second. But first, let's go to the bottom left quadrant. Let's start with the name. The name for this one is the seductress. Ooh. Everyone say, ooh. So she is, remember when I talked about goals? This is where you set goals from. So she is creation. Right? She impregnates, she's creation. She's intuition. Expression. Persuasive. Not manipulative, persuasive. She's sexy. She's magnetic. Right? She's the attractor. When it comes to law of attraction and manifesting anything, you need your dark feminine. So if you're like, oh, I'm trying to manifest, it's not working, you need to get out of your masculine into your feminine. She's also empowered. Right? So who feels dark masculine from me? Empowered, creation, expression. Yeah. So dark feminine is actually really great when it comes to self-expression, confidence, putting yourself out there. You don't have to be hard and, strong like a man. No, you can be in your dark feminine. Cool. So now let's finish with the bottom right-hand quadrant. The name for this one is the warrior. So this is where we want a little bit of this in our love life. We want someone who's driven, direct, motivated. And again, this will be in some of you. This is where a lot of you rule your life. Hard, hustler, assertive, control. Remember, this is where we rely on this masculine to keep us safe. And she's good, or he's good at it. This part of us is good at it, right? So we can see here that we've now got our light up the top, dark at the bottom, and neither are good or bad. But can you see how you might be spending a lot of time in one of them as opposed to another? Yeah. So you might find in relationships, you're the maiden, or you might find at work, when it comes to career and work, you're the warrior. You're like, hell yeah, let's go, hustle, hustle. And so you can see that it might oscillate a little bit. You might find in different areas of your life, you go from one to the other. So you know how I mentioned before about the mature and the immature feminine masculine? So all of these are mature, right? So right next to somewhere on your circle, on the inside, these are all mature. It means that they're integrated, they work for you rather than against you. And then on the outside, we're now going to do the same thing, and we're going to share the immature archetypes. So at the top left, right, on the outside of the maiden, we have what's called the martyr. So the martyr is victim, people-pleasing, easily manipulated, right? So people walk all over her. She's powerless. She has no purpose in life. So this is where, and I'm mindful, but sometimes we need to be triggered to see our blind spots. A lot of mums fall into the martyr because they lose their sense of self-purpose. Their purpose now is all about their children, and they have no sense of, well, what are my needs? What do I care about? What are my goals? What makes me happy? How do I take care of myself? Right? And these mums, you girls are so good at taking care of your children. I mean, it's a job in itself. But you also have a life of your own. You have your own needs, your own desires, your own wants and needs, and you deserve to give them back to yourself. So excess feminine tend to be in our relationship with self. Mums can fall into that category there. And then past abusers can often stay stuck in this cycle too. On the top right, so now we're going to the light masculine immature. You might know a few men in this one. He's weak. They're the pushover. They're very agreeable. They don't have their own opinions. They lack assertiveness. And they're indecisive men. So when you say, you know, what do you want for dinner? He's like, I don't know, whatever you want, right? They're indecisive. So they're called the impotent lover. Impotent lover. Another one for this one is whipped, right? Their partner is the alpha female. They don't have any control in their relationship. Let's go down to the bottom left now. This one's called the witch. So this is where a lot of us would have been in high school. So it's gossip, she's drama, jealousy, insecure, negative, and can't hear no, and maybe a little bitchy. So some of us might have emotionally unavailable mothers who are in the dark feminine, immature. Does that resonate with anyone? Dark feminine, immature. They might have some mothers, emotionally unavailable mums, who are stuck there. And that's okay as well. They just haven't learned how to mature that. Maybe it feels unsafe for them. Okay, and then finishing with the bottom right, this is the disintegrated or the immature dark masculine. The name for this one is the sadist. S-A-D-I-S-T, sadist. They are narcissistic. They're a predator. Can't hear no. They are cheaters. They cheat and they lie. So again, some of you might have dated a sadist. So I just bring up the next slide here so you girls can see the breakdown of this. Anyone dated a sadist before? Melinda. Yeah. So yeah, they're very difficult to date because they're toxic masculinity. They often make us feel unsafe too. Yes, and harmful. There's typically where you'll see domestic violence between the martyr and the sadist. So you know how we talked about polarity, girls? The polarity is that the martyr will date the sadist. The impotent lover will date the witch. Yeah. So this is why it's important in relationships. You can't have two masculine energies in a relationship. It becomes depolarized. This is where there's lots of conflict. So if you're noticing you and your partner fight a lot, it's probably because there's quite a lot of depolarization. Just looking at where are you and where is he, and where do you both need to be? Okay, so does this all make sense? Is there any questions about that? If you do, just take yourselves off mute, because I changed my screen view, so I can't see anyone right now. Okay, so it's really important, like in relationships, if you want to have a divine masculine man who's in his light and integrated masculine and feminine, you need to be able to feel safe in your feminine. A woman will never surrender to the divine masculine man until she surrenders to her own inner feminine. So if you've attracted past relationships, or you'd like to have a relationship with a divine man, but you're scared of the same patterns, scared of getting hurt, you need to surrender to your own inner feminine first. So these are 11 ways we are then going to look at embodying our feminine. A lot of you are really good at embodying the masculine. We know that now. So let's look at embodying the mature feminine. Number one, feminine energy shouldn't have to clash with masculine energy. Number two, we want to have a voice, right? Like I said before, a lot of us are scared to have a voice. We're scared of judgment. We're scared of being too loud. I know for some of you, just based on clients in this space that I've worked with, you have that fear of being too loud. Next one is openness. So you've got to be open to receiving. For independent women, we don't like to ask for help. So we need to be open so that we can surrender into receiving help from others. Next one is express yourself through creative means. This is the feminine. She is self-expression. So remember, for me, I mentioned creating those earrings. For you, it might be writing or painting or music or dancing or singing. Yes, Danny, I'm not afraid to be loud anymore. Yes, Danny, you're so welcome. Yeah. The next one is embrace your sexuality. And I mean emotionally as well, right? Your inner sexuality. So this is what it means for you to move with, what's it called? It's having a, what's the word? An intimate relationship with yourself and being able to move with that connection with self. Next one is be proud of being a woman. You don't need to be like a man. You don't need to do it like them in order to one up them or be seen or be noticed. Be proud of being a woman. Don't live for male validation. The next one is community. Having a community of like-minded feminine women that push you to step into your feminine, get out of the gossip and the bitchiness of talking about other women, and talk about ideas, talk about things that make you feel happy and elevated on a higher level of frequency. The next one is find routines that help you feel grounded. This is especially important if you're in your masculine or your excess feminine. Next one is reclaim your own beauty. That's why I said to you girls, wear something that makes you feel feminine today. I know when I wear things that make me feel feminine, my energy is just like light and I feel like playful and fun. And claim the word beauty in your own right. Beauty isn't necessarily how you look, but how you feel, right? How you glow on the inside. There have been times where I've worn makeup and then times where I haven't worn makeup and I felt more beautiful when I haven't worn makeup. So claim your own word for beauty. Number 10 is reconnect with your body. So this one's especially important as we look at feeling safe. So safety is spelt through our body, girls. Safety is not a matter of how we think or how we feel emotionally. It's actually what happens in our body and our nervous system. So we want to reconnect back to that and go, well, how's my nervous system? So for example, if you girls were to tune into your body right now, and I ask you to relax your shoulders, relax your chest, relax your jaw, relax your facial muscles, how many of you notice that you are holding tension in your body? Yeah, and you didn't even know. So most of us are disconnected to our bodies and we don't even know we're holding stress. We're in this masculine control. So reconnect with your body. Notice from a nervous system perspective, oh, am I holding on to all this stress and this need to be in my excess masculine? So these are embodiment practices that help you to come back to the true essence of yourself. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to, break up with all your friends and break up with your partner because he's too much in his, feminine or too much in his masculine, or it doesn't mean you need to start like exiling people from your life. But what I want you girls to start doing is just being mindful. So you're probably wondering, what's number 11? So have a look at this photo here and just have a look at what you think that means. For some people, they think it's like really woo-woo, like this energetic thing that you can't see. And if you can't see it, then it's not real. The thing about intuition is you can't see it, but it doesn't mean that it's not real. Yes, seeing is believing, but perceiving is also believing too. Whether you have a perception of whether these things we talk about, like intuition and heart space, is real or not, is your perception of what's your truth. But when it comes to intuition, it's like the law of attraction. People that know how to use it and take advantage of it, they attract and manifest incredible things into their life. I firsthand have used law of attraction to attract so much into my life. And it comes back to our ability to be able to access this. And you'll see in the middle here, if you look really closely, there's this red heart. And it's our heart space. So a lot of the times we think that as human beings, our power comes from our ability to think, right? Because we have this big brain that's like a super highway and computer. But neuroscientists are starting to recognize that our heart is just as sophisticated in its ability to intuitively pick up on information, senses, things like that. So they're realizing that our heart space magnetically and energetically is way more powerful than our brain is. In fact, and if any of the level 2 girls remember the statistics, magnetically your heart is 5,000 times more powerful than your brain, and energetically it's 500 times more powerful than your brain. I wonder if any of the level 2 girls can fact check that, but I'm fair sure that it's 500 times more energetically powerful and 5,000 times more magnetically. Yeah. And so when we're looking at our heart space, like this has this huge power and this ability that a lot of us don't even recognize is there. And this isn't some woo-woo concept. This is like quantum physics we're talking about here. This is what scientists study. They just don't teach us this in school, because a human with untapped potential, it doesn't make for a very good one to control. Suddenly, nobody would want to work. Everyone would just want to be free beings living in alignment with their purpose every day, right? Rather than somebody else's purpose. So there's a reason why we don't get taught this in school. But girls, this is where you access your power. And put in the chat box if you know the answer to this. You know the fastest way to access our heart space? What do we reckon? It's all about today's theme. The feminine energy. Right, so the feminine is the heart space, and accessing this and opening our heart chakra, allows us to access this divine and really, really powerful energetic force within ourselves. And so when it comes to intuition, it's like this power. It's like we know, but we don't know how. And that's not coming from our thinking. Because when we are intuitively knowing something, what do we say? We say, I feel like there's something wrong about this. I feel like this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. So we don't say, I think it feels wrong. We say, I feel like there's something off about this. My gut, I have this gut feeling. So when we're looking at our intuition, girls, it's a feeling, it's not a thought. If you're having thoughts about whether you should or shouldn't do something, that's not your intuition, that's your fear. If you're unsure whether you should do something or not, like Joy in the Conscious Woman, it's your fear. Whereas if there's a feeling that's like, this feels right, but I'm scared of it not working out, I'm scared of failing, that's your intuition. Sorry, that's your fear. So accessing your intuition, it's the final pillar of being an embodied feminine. Is being able to access this inner knowledge, girls. It's coming back and surrendering to your heart space. And so how do we do that? Well, we got to feel it. And a lot of us are scared to feel our heart because we're scared to feel our feelings. Because as I feel my heart and open my heart and feel all the love, I also got to feel the pain. I got to feel the sadness. I got to feel all of the unworthiness and inadequacies or imperfections that I've been holding on to since I was a little girl. I see you. You know, the thing about inner work, girls, is although when we look at our heart space and feeling that, it doesn't mean that we have to invite all of our shadow and all of our darkness in at once and sit with it. I'm still to this day doing shadow work, which is the dark parts of my heart, on things that have happened to me a long time ago. And so like pacing is really important. I have this motto in the Conscious Woman called slower is faster. So we don't look at your heart and go, let's just look at all the pain and wounding and feel it all at once, because that's scary too. So the reason I'm saying that is I want you girls to realize like you can give yourself permission to open your heart and just start by looking at all of these beautiful parts of your heart, what it means to feel things. You know, when you look at a sunset and there's that little moment where you almost want to cry because it's so beautiful. Yeah, when was the last time you looked at yourself like that in the mirror? Oh, and that's what we're missing, girls, is that you're alive, that you're here and you're living, and you're a divine, feminine, beautiful queen, and that you stopped seeing yourself as that and you learned to see yourself in this different light. And it's about coming back to your heart and realizing this love within that's so much more powerful than your brain could ever be. Like when we realize as women how powerful we are, my gosh, no wonder, hundreds of years ago, that we were burned at the stake for this access to this knowledge, right? The witch hunts were all about women who were expressing themselves in this way and teaching people how to access their inner power. No wonder they were burnt alive for that by the patriarchy of men. So when we come back to this, and whether you want to call it your little inner witchy part of you, embrace that part too, but this like inner world of love within. This is how you girls can start to come back to the truth of who you've always been. Because she's beautiful and she's worthy and she's so deserving of love. She's so deserving of caring and giving back to herself just as much as the ways in which she gives back to everyone else. Because I know you girls, even if you're not clients of mine, I know you. When it comes to other people, you are so good. You would give them the shirt off the back of your shoulders. And when it comes to yourself, we don't have time for it. Or because we're the last on our priority list, we don't even have the energy for it. But how you show up in the world becomes the permission you give for other women and your daughters and your sisters and your friends. When you step into your feminine power, you give other women permission to step into theirs, just like I'm doing for you right now. I couldn't do this if I hadn't embodied my feminine. But I don't just do it for people who show up to my masterclass. I'm an embodiment of it every single day. So I be that woman as a human being, right? Not a human doing. It's a being. It's a state of being, girls. And by doing that, you're paving the pathway for other women to also feel heard and seen and loved without conditions. They don't have to perform for it. They don't have to look a certain way, but they can glow from the inside out, and that your light doesn't create shadows for anyone else, that your light illuminates a pathway for them. So your shining bright illuminates path for other women, but your playing small only makes you step into other women's shadows of comparison and not good enough. So like if you want to step into their light, you have to do that first. You have to step into your own inner light, your own inner world, and know in your heart, unapologetically, that that doesn't dim other people's lights. It might trigger other people who want your kind of light, but it doesn't dim their light. It just shines an aspect on themselves that maybe they haven't worked on. And that's okay too, because everyone's on their own journey. But think of all the other women in your life and your future daughters and your current daughters whose lights you're going to start to kindle with your fire. Because we learn by watching women. It's monkey see, monkey do, right? Your children will learn by watching you, how you shine your light and take care of yourself, and how much time you spend nurturing that. So I invite all of you today, definitely today, take some time to do things that allow you to kindle that light. And going forwards, of course, using your embodiment practices, opening your hearts just to the things that right now feel safe enough. It might just be the small things first. And if you really want to access more of that heart space and you're scared, come join the Conscious Woman. This is a safe space where we can help you access that kind of work, to start looking in at your heart space and do it in a way that feels right for the pacing in which these parts keep you safe, right? Your protector parts. They're like, nope, nip that shit in the bud, those ones, right? We hold space for those parts too, because they keep you safe for a reason. Reach out to me if you girls want to have a chat about that or about your journey, or if you just want to jump on a call and get some more clarity about what that looks like for you. My space is open for you all. Sending you all love and lots of light. And I hope to continue to connect with all of you. Be kind to yourselves. Give yourself that love you deserve. And thank you all so much for joining me today. Thanks, girls. Bye. Hello, lovely. Thank you so much for watching the replay. I have a special gift for you. As I mentioned, if you purchased the Embodied Feminine Masterclass, I was going to give you a free gift. And so what I want you to do is click the link below and go and schedule in a one-on-one call with me where we can do a strategy session, talk about your blocks, your limitations, what's going on underneath the shadow, so that when you're able to break through those limitations, being able to access your divine feminine, being able to tap into your intuition, being able to open your heart space and achieve these things you want in your heart of all hearts becomes abundantly available to you. Without you girls, I wouldn't be able to do what I love every single day. So I would love nothing more than to get on a call with you and being able to work through these blocks that are coming up for you. It makes me be able to do what I love the most in my heart of all hearts. So click the link below, secure your time, book in a session, and I will see you on the other side.